Hello, hello. Y'all, we're just a little bit late coming on. We ran into some technical difficulties, so thank you for bearing with us. But welcome to Profiles. This is the last episode of season one. I'm feeling really emotional right now. This has been such an amazing journey so far. I never would have imagined that on July 18th of 2020, when I relaunched the virtual iteration, which it started back in March when COVID-19 reached our shores. Actually, it was April, and it just snowballed, and here we are. So I'm so grateful to each and every one of you who you've tuned in, you've liked the episode, you shared the page, you liked the page, all of those wonderful things. Thank you so much for making this first season such a phenomenal success, even between the technical difficulties. So thank you so much. As always, Profiles was created to inform, inspire, and empower the viewer. And I hope that this is your experience tonight. We have a phenomenal guest with me. She was actually supposed to come on in October as part of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but Hurricane Zeta did not want us to be great, and we had to postpone the episode. And what better time than now to talk about health, nutrition, and the correlation it has with breast health. So breast health is certainly 365, and we're going to continue the conversation tonight. We're doing a recipe, and she has tremendous recipes in her arsenal. You have an opportunity to click on the link in the post below. It's a beautiful salad, and you can start off your 2020 Thanksgiving holiday with a meal plan. It's absolutely complimentary, 3-day free trial. So yeah, we'll go on and get started. I'm so happy and thrilled to introduce to you Tamar Rothenberg. She is a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and she's here to talk all things health, wellness, and breast health. So Tamar, thank you so much for joining tonight and bearing with me in all of this rescheduling.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's such a treat to be on with you. As I said, I loved listening to your show, and I'm wearing my Apple t-shirt for fall, so we're ready to go.
Excellent, excellent. So you're wearing your health and you're eating the health.
I got a strawberry behind me, so we're all good.
We're all good. So Tamar, let's first talk about, the correlation between, let's first talk about mammograms. I know, during the month of October, there's this big to-do, which it should be, about women and men getting mammograms, but we were talking before the show started that women aren't getting them as often right now. Talk to us about it. Why do you think that's the case?
It's a real disturbing statistic right now. So as of April, when the pandemic started, mammograms were 90% down. That's going to have terrible ramifications. And I've spoken to radiologists and oncologists, and they're really scared about what's coming in the spring. Because you could have, a very small problem that becomes a larger problem to treat come April or come, if you really miss your mammogram. Right. So find a place where you feel safe. They're taking enormous precautions to make you feel safe now. You can be in and out in 10, 15 minutes because they're not making people wait in the waiting room anymore. It's a really quick thing. It's the best diagnostic tool we have now for screening. So just go and, some breast cancers are slow growing, and so there's less impact, but a lot of them are fast growing. Right. So we really want to get on top of it when it's easy to treat and even cure. So go for your mammogram.
And you said something really important, especially about, the safety measures, the protocols that doctors' offices have put in place now because of COVID. When I got mine, it was very simple, very easy. I had my apprehensions, but when I got there, they took every precaution to make sure I was safe. So if that's a concern, please don't let that stop you from getting one of the most important screenings that you as a woman and a man, one of the most important as a man can get. So please, please, please don't let that stop you. So
thank you for raising that awareness. Yeah,
for sure. Now I want to talk about, because when I did the series last month in October around breast cancer, I definitely wanted to talk about nutrition because a lot of times, you know, at least in my experience when I did other shows around breast cancer awareness, you know, the health piece wasn't necessarily the focal point. It was the chemotherapy. It was all of the therapeutics, you know, the medicines that really do a lot of damage to the body. But a lot of conversation was not had around health, wellness, nutrition. So talk to us about the correlation between what we put in our bodies and its impact on our breast health.
So, you know, there's 90% of breast cancers are not hereditary, meaning only about 8-10% are hereditary. And if you have this hereditary link, like a breast cancer genetic mutation, which could be what we call BRC1 or 2, then you do have a higher risk. It doesn't mean you'll necessarily get it, but you have a higher risk. But 90% is cancers that we don't know how it originated. So that's an opportunity for us to step up, you know, our health and eating. And it's not just about nutrition. Nutrition is one spoke of the wheel, right? It's one part of it. We tend to almost put too much emphasis on nutrition. It's access to care, it's lifestyle, it's not smoking, not drinking, you know, all these things add up. So, but nutrition is a little more manageable in terms of our own lives. So that's where I like to, you know, educate and put the emphasis on, but know that it's not the only thing, right? It's one part of it.
Right. And I must tell the viewers that this is not medical advice. These are just tips and ideas for you to incorporate into your health regimen now. Not only just, you know, not just for your breast health, but for your overall health, because really, Tamar, what you put in your body certainly impacts the whole body, not just one part of the body.
Right. That's such a great point, because whatever you do, let's say for breast health, is also going to affect heart health, blood sugar. These are all good things to do in any case. There are some foods that maybe have a little more impact on breast cancer, but in general, whatever you're doing, whatever steps you're taking affects your whole body, as you said. So it's, you know, you're going to take very, very small steps and do what you can do, but know that it has an impact.
Right.
And I want to bring up that we do have, people really don't realize we do have 10 cancer prevention guidelines that have been heavily researched and, you know, backed by science. And they're not the 10 commandments, because if you only do a couple of them, the research says it will still have an impact on reducing your risk of breast cancer and other cancers. So you don't have to live perfectly. You're just going to take it step by step, steps to your goals that you want to accomplish.
So there are a lot of myths, or at least, you know, as I was researching, you know, when I was covering breast cancer for a previous show, there was conversation about sugars and things that you shouldn't eat because it feeds the cancer. Can you talk to us about some of the myths that are out there, the misconceptions?
Yeah.
So we're not starving ourselves, if you will, from things that we might enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have to kind of relax around food, because there is no one food that will cure cancer and no one food that even causes cancer. There's foods that maybe raise your risk, like alcohol is a biggie. But in general, we have to kind of have a better relationship with food and not be so stressed about food. It's nourishment, it's energy, it's good stuff. So the sugar myth and the other myth is about soy. It's based on a lot of misinformation, and it's really, other dietitians that I work with in oncology, it's so upsetting to see people have this stress around food that's based on really myth. So, there's no science behind it. The sugar, if I can just explain a little about the sugar connection. So the sugar connection is based on a misconception, like when you go for a PET scan, those areas that take up glucose, sugar lights up, and that's how they find the cancer. that has nothing to do with sugar in your blood. That has to do with the tumor is already there, and the tumor likes to eat up glucose. So it's a result of the cancer. It's not the cause. And somehow it got totally misconstrued that if you eat sugar, it's going to grow tumors. You know, your body is really smart. It will use anything to grow things. It will use a stalk of broccoli. It doesn't have to be a cupcake. So it will find sugar where it needs it. Now, no one's saying go out and have bowls of sugar, right? We're not doing that anyway. So you want to have, you know, just normal amounts of food and sugar in your diet, but not to go crazy and think be really stressed about when I eat this, it's going to cause cancer. That's not the way cancer works at all. So let's relax.
Let's relax. I like that. Now, so you mentioned soy. So when I started weaning myself off of cow's milk, now occasionally I may get a strawberry milk because I just love it. But when I was weaning myself off of cow's milk, soy was an option. And then I heard about soy and cancer, and I said, "Oh, I can't drink any more soy." So I stopped drinking the soy milk, and I made sure that I didn't eat soy based foods. So what is that myth around soy? Should we be scared of it?
It's so interesting because it persists. It's not going away, but it is truly a myth. And the problem was it was based on incomplete research. So years ago, I personally wasn't a dietitian then, but oncologists and doctors were telling women who had hormonal driven breast cancer to avoid soy because they didn't know enough at the time. But now we have 25 years of really good research that shows that soy is safe. It's not only safe, it's probably protective. So we see, like in Asian cultures, very, very low rates of breast cancer. We see now with adolescents, if they have a serving a day of soy, they have less breast cancer. They follow these adolescents for 20, 25 years. Wow. So the research is there. It's really good research. Don't be afraid of it unless you have allergy or some other medical condition. Soy is a great plant-based protein. And it can be, and for example, soy milk, they now add calcium and vitamin D. It's high in protein. It's a great milk replacement if you need it, especially for people who are lactose intolerant. It's just a all-around good food that we shouldn't be scared of.
Shouldn't be scared of soy. Shouldn't cut sugar out of your diet 100%.
And keep the carbs too while you're at it.
So is there some misinformation floating around out there about carbohydrates?
Well, there's always like the trendy evil food. So carbs are now having their moment as the evil food. But you know what? Carbs are energy as well. They're brain food. Your body needs the carbs. It thrives on it. So again, it depends on the type of carb and what else you're eating during your day. So it's the whole picture. And when we look at cancer prevention now, we're not looking at like, oh, you need to eat this one food or that one food, like just eat blueberries or just eat kale. It's more about the pattern. What are you eating most of the time that makes the most impact? So you can look on your plate. Do you have a lot of color? Do you have 2/3 vegetables of your plate, vegetables and fruits and plant-based protein? That's the kind of plate that is what we call cancer preventative. And that makes the most impact. So it's not the 1 tablespoon of this or the one food you had that is really going to make a big difference. So that's where, yeah.
So basically you eat your rainbow. You eat your rainbow food.
Yes.
You incorporate some white dough and, some sugars and so to have that well-balanced plate.
Exactly. Well-balanced. Balance is the key, really.
Mm-hmm. Now, for somebody like me, I get really overwhelmed easily, especially if I'm trying to, change my routine, my eating routine, my exercise routine, and I want to do everything at one time, and I get so overwhelmed and I don't do anything. So
right.
For a woman who, wants to be more mindful of what she's putting in her body, not just for her breast health, but for her overall health, where should she start? Should she start incorporating more spinach or, more apples? How would that look for someone
Yeah,
who gets?
that's such a great question. And I get this with my clients all the time. I tell them start small, because if you're going to take over everything, it's unsustainable, right? It's exactly what you're saying. So the key is, so for example, if you want to reduce meat, which is one of the big recommendations now for breast cancer as well. It used to be just for colon cancer. Now we see a link to breast cancer. So, you don't want to go completely vegetarian, because it's not going to work for you if you've been making meat a big part of your life. Mm-hmm. So here's what you can do. You can choose, like we have Meatless Monday now. It's a big campaign. You can choose one meal. I'm going to go plant-based and see how that feels to my body. What is satisfying? What can I discover about what I like about plant foods? And then from the one meal, if you want to go one day, like Meatless Monday, that's a great way to start. So that's what I mean by these small steps that end up making a huge impact. Yeah. And of course, we have to think about what our family wants. Are they ready to go? So that's the way to start, I feel, the best way. Just start with one meal and see how it goes, or one recipe.
Now, would you recommend, I actually had a guest on some Saturdays ago about smoothies, incorporating more smoothies and juices in your diet, and how, the best juice to use, all of that. It was a great show. So if someone has an aversion of sorts to vegetables, because there are people that, they just can't, whether it's the texture or the taste, they just can't stomach the vegetable. Would a smoothie vegetable fruit type of mixture, is that beneficial at all? Can one be substituted for the other?
They can be. I also, just to backtrack, I find when people don't like vegetables, it's because they haven't figured out like a good way to prepare them. And you talk about texture. Texture is a big issue. But if we're going to smoothies, perfectly acceptable, perfectly good. Especially, we kind of rely on them during cancer treatment because they're a great way to get your nourishment. Mm-hmm. So the key with the smoothie, I would say, is, first of all, if you have a high-power blender, keep that pulp. That pulp is life-giving. That's fiber. That's gut cleansing. That's going to be really great. Mm-hmm. And the good things about smoothies is that I make smoothies with spinach, for example. You don't taste the spinach, so you avoid that whole issue of I'm eating spinach, Yeah. And then you could put in really great stuff like seeds and nuts and, really fill up on that great nutrition. And so the key, I would say, with smoothies, if you're going to have a smoothie, let's say for breakfast, don't put in more fruit than you would normally eat. So if you, let's say, have a banana for breakfast, only put one banana in the smoothie. Don't add in other stuff, because then you're overloading on sugar. Fruit sugar is perfectly good, but you're overloading on it in one meal. So unless you're making like a couple of servings at it, then you may want to add berries and things like that. But I find like people put in too much fruit than they would normally eat. So then it becomes kind of, doesn't have the effect that you want.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, so I really love, because if you all don't know, I follow Tamar on social media. You can find her there as Tamar. What's your social handle?
Breast Cancer Nutritionist.
Breast Cancer Nutritionist. So again, for those of you who are just tuning in, Tamar is a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and she focuses primarily on breast cancer health. So she knows what she's talking about. Follow her on Instagram. She posts some really great, not only recipes, but these myths that we've been talking about, and things you need to be mindful of in terms of your fruits and your vegetables, and putting them all together to make a healthy meal, a satisfying meal. So follow her on social. But Tamar, you were talking about, or you had posted, and I shared, I've shared as well, about anti-inflammatory types of foods, foods that repair cells. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that so that our viewers can hear it. And then when they go to the grocery store, they can be mindful of these things they need to put in their baskets.
Right. So, our bodies, again, I keep saying this, they're very smart. They know what they're doing. So your body's in a constant state of repair and rebuild. But at the same time, you want to kind of get rid of things that you don't need, right? So cancer starts because the DNA gets damaged. And there are foods that help repair the DNA in the cells in your body. So you want to kind of think, and again, most of them are plant foods. They're going to be things like fiber that are only found in plant foods. There's no fiber in animal foods. They're going to be foods with a lot of colors like berries. So again, you look at your plate, see how much color you have on it. Those are kind of the foods. The green leafy vegetables have tons of repair in them in terms of your body. So again, it's back to color. Just make it easy and experiment with different things that you want to try, different recipes. Start looking at more plant-based recipes so you get an idea of how to prepare things. I also say, like, if you're a little scared of going plant-based, we used to say, what's for dinner? And like, what would we say? We'd say like chicken, meat, pork. It was always around the meat protein, the whole plate, right? So try to switch it a little and say, what's for dinner? Okay, I'm having lentils. I'm having chili. I'm having seitan. Kind of shift it a little in that direction. And then you'll start exploring the recipes. And when you go shopping, have a new recipe in mind that you want to try. Just one recipe, not, a whole menu, and see how that goes.
And, this made what you talking about that made me think about, for those who want to try new vegetables or try new combinations of things, put it in a soup. Soup is a wonderful way to, electrify the taste buds,
That's right. I love that idea. And then you add herbs and spices. Yeah. You can spice it up with harissa. There's so many great things now you can find. You used to only find them in certain markets. Now you can find them everywhere. So take advantage of that.
Well, let's talk about some of these herbs and spices, because we don't have to add tons of salt to make the food taste good. What are some herbs and spices you recommend to your clients to help them not only create wonderful menus or meals, but that are tasty and satisfying?
Well, honestly, I tell them, go back to the spices that their family loved, that they grew up with. We tend to forget about them. We tend to look on the internet for recipes that are not in our culture, which is fine. It's great to experiment. But then, we have an affinity with the foods we grew up with. They're what I call food memories. Mm-hmm. So go back to the herbs and spices that maybe your grandma cooked and discover them and put them in dishes. And they're all good. There's no bad herb or spice in dietary terms. Only in supplements, then it's a huge dose. So that would be something you might be careful about. But what is your favorite spice palette? What do you love, or what do you remember growing up?
So I can't say that I necessarily remember anything growing up, but I know when I moved out on my own and started, I thought I was grown and going shopping for myself and trying new recipes and things, I fell in love with fennel. I love fennel.
Yeah.
I love dill.
Do you know that it's a de-bloater? If you have a lot of gas, go for the fennel. Yes, you can make fennel.
That's why. That's why that happened. I love dill. I love garlic. I love garlic. I love garlic. So those are just some of the herbs that I really have an affinity for. And I noticed, I could be repurposing, I don't know, spaghetti sauce, and it may have gotten a little bland or wasn't up to my standards when I cooked it the first time. If I add just a little dollop of garlic, it just, and some olive oil,
garlic solves everything. Yeah.
It does.
It's true. And even like with frozen foods, people think they're not as nutritious. They are. Yeah. But, the texture and the flavor is going to be different. So if you add a little citrus like orange juice or lemon juice to a little frozen food, it perks it right up and it makes it taste really good. So, these are all tricks that we can use right now, especially we're not maybe shopping as much and we want to rely more on frozen foods. So just know that they're perfectly nutritious. They're picked when they're absolutely ripe and perfectly fresh. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they even have more vitamins and minerals than fresh food. So it's just a matter of, the texture and working with that.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate what you just said about adding a little bit of lemon. I never considered that. Never
Yeah, try
considered
it. Yeah.
to frozen foods because, quite honestly, and I hate to tell on myself, especially to a nutritionist and dietitian, but I have a bag of spinach in the refrigerator right now that I bought. I think it was last weekend. I said, "Oh, I'm going to make smoothies every day this week." Haven't made a smoothie yet, so it's going bad. So that's why I prefer buying frozen foods so that I don't waste.
That's right.
Yeah, don't waste
Makes a lot of sense.
food. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, from
Yeah.
what I'm understanding, the frozen food is just as healthy, if not healthier.
If not healthier. In fact, I was on this orchard tour, and it was fascinating from when they picked it to where it was packaged and processed or whatever needed to be done. It was like a 20-minute drive. So between that and then it was frozen immediately. So, you can't get better than that except for the farmer's market.
Yeah, yeah. And oh gosh, who doesn't love a good farmer's market?
When we opened here, they were closed for a long time, and they reopened, and I ran back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm getting a little personal because you are an expert in this field, and I'm curious to know what's in your shopping cart when you go out and buy your fruits and veggies.
Well, what's in my shopping cart has nothing to do with what's in your shopping cart. And I always say that we shouldn't be looking at other people's carts. It's none of their business. But it's funny because I've been in the supermarket and bumped into a client, and they're like backing away with the shopping cart. No, don't look. I'm like, it's fine. So,
we don't want to judge them.
I don't. If you know me, I don't judge what anybody's saying. So, but what's in my cart is going to be a really plant-based food. So a lot of the berries, a lot of green leafy vegetables, a lot of things that you can pair easily. Like if I need protein, okay, so maybe I'll have some tofu or seitan, and I'm going to have, a veggie with that, or I'm going to make a stew. So I'm going to have, beans and chickpeas and things like that. So I just find you have to be a little more creative with plant foods because it's not like a one item thing, but it can be done. It can be done in an easy way. And I give my clients a lot of strategies for making it easier, not more complicated.
Right. So I know you have this meal plan. In fact, we've been sharing it on social, this 3-day meal plan. Well, first, let's rewind a little bit. When you're helping your clients plan their meals, are you planning for an entire month, a week, a couple of days? How would you recommend, for instance, me, would you recommend as I'm starting out to change, my lifestyle to certainly benefit my whole health, but with a focus on breast health? Would you recommend that I start off at a couple of days a week, a full week, 2 weeks? How does that look for your clients?
Right. So my goal is not actually to hand you a meal plan and go off and have a good day. It's for you to be independent and know what you like to pair, what your body feels right with. I do what's called intuitive eating. So you feel like you kind of follow your body's cues with what it needs, and it really works out beautifully. So if I do suggest a meal plan, that we do that together, we customize it together. And it's really just scaffolding. It's just to get you going, to understand like what's a carb, what's a protein, what's a fat, to get that balance in your meals, and then really go off and learn your way of what suits you, what suits your body. I find that you should be the boss of your body. You will eventually figure out what your body needs if we start listening to it, understanding its cues. And I think that's really important.
I'm so glad you said that. I find myself on this roller coaster of healthy eating and then falling into ruts, healthy eating, falling into ruts. And I was literally having a conversation with myself this morning. And the conversation was, Paulette, you have the tools literally at your fingertips. Do you prefer this type of lifestyle where, just a couple of dollars for some fruits and vegetables? Or do you prefer this lifestyle where you have to invest hundreds of dollars in medicine? Thankfully, I'm not on that end of the spectrum, but, we all could be if, at some point in our lives, but to prolong that process, use the power, use the tools that you have.
Your body is very powerful. Even if you've been through cancer, even if you had cancer, you can still listen to your body. Your body is still working for you. It's repairing as we speak. Even with cancer, it did amazing things for you to survive. So we have to respect our bodies. And I think the dieting industry took that power away from us. It said, no, you don't know. And, don't eat this, don't eat that. And we weren't experts on our body anymore. So I want to give people that power back. You are the expert. And that's where I find dieting takes that power away. If you're going to count calories and things like that. So we are stepping away from that model. We're not, many dietitians understand that dieting doesn't work for you. And then what happens with a lot of the diets and the fad diets is that people go on and off, as you said. It's unsustainable. And then you may gain or regain weight. And that is actually by itself a risk factor for breast cancer. So yes, and people don't know that, and they think they're doing the right thing by going on these diets. So the best thing is to, learn these strategies for what works for you. Increase your plant foods, reduce your alcohol, reduce meat. These are all strategies that will have a huge impact, which don't involve dieting at all.
And you said this a little earlier on. It's about lifestyle. This, like you said, it's not a diet. It's a lifestyle change. Just like you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you put on your clothes. That's part of your lifestyle, your routine. So incorporating these healthy habits become a lifestyle.
Right. It has to fit you. It has to fit your values. For example, like a lot of my clients are vegans. It fits their values. They're not necessarily just doing it for health, but they're doing it because they want to reduce suffering or sustainability of the planet. Those are their values. So it meshes, and so it's sustainable for them. If it's not your value, it's just not going to work.
It's like you said, just a fad. It's just a fad.
Right.
So let's talk about now the meal plan that you're offering to those who are watching and even those who catch the replay. It's your 3-day complimentary meal plan that's specifically geared around flavors of the African diaspora. Talk to us about that.
So I wanted to offer something that, brought you back to your cultural foods. These are very, very important. And I think we tend to forget it in our society that, again, because of the diets, that we don't, see the affinity we have with these foods, but they're pleasurable, right? They're good. And so what I want to point out, there was a study done many years ago, and it was done on Ethiopian women. And they took one group of Ethiopian women and they said, here's your traditional stew. I want you to taste it. And then they took another group and they gave them a stew that was not their cultural food at all. But they told them this has a lot of iron, so you should eat it. And then they tested the blood of these Ethiopian women. And guess what? The women who ate their cultural food, even though it had less iron, absorbed more iron. They actually got more nutrition out of their cultural foods. So this is not something to mess with. We want to keep our cultural foods. So I just wanted to offer some of these flavors as well and get some ideas. The meal plan, it's not a meal plan. It's really just recipes for you to see what you love to eat and discover. But it follows the guideline of 75% plants. So you can kind of get an idea of what does the plate look like if I'm having less meat.
Yeah. And for some, that's a total brain switch because, there are many, like you said, meat, chicken and beef and pork is they're mainstays in many diets. And to switch that and to try to change the composition of your plate can be a mental switch.
Absolutely. And that's why it should be done slowly. Like I said, the one meal, good enough for now. I will say that we see it's so fascinating. In 2 weeks, if you change your diet more plant-based, that we do see enormous changes in what we call the microbiome. That's the gut health, which is really your immune health, because 98% of your immune cells are in your gut. So you're increasing your immunity by just increasing your plants. So 2 weeks, that's all it takes. So you can start now.
And I want to mention this or ask this in terms of the gut health. I just recently started buying kombucha. It's not the best stuff in the world, but it's not the worst either. And taking a probiotic, well, that is a probiotic, but taking additional probiotics. Can you talk to us a little bit about probiotics in terms of, just overall health? How does that have any impact at all on breast health in any way?
So probiotics, again, increases the diversity of your gut, which is what you want. You're feeding the bugs in your gut, which is what you want to see. I will say that kombucha, it's a fun food, but really we don't know how many cultures there are. And if it's not listed on the label, it's fun, but I don't know if you're getting what you think.
I see.
And I'm not knocking, kombucha. It's funny because it does have a little alcohol. I think it's like,
oh, it does?
Yeah,
that's why I felt a little.
I think they do list it, but it's not enough where it's not considered like wine. Sure. But I saw somebody giving it to her toddler. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Might not want to do that.
Yeah. But the foods with the highest probiotics, there are certain plant foods that have it, and then the best ones are. They even have a non-dairy based one called kefir, which is a very old recipe that probably has the most number of probiotics that you can find. So that is something, if you like it, you could put that in your smoothie instead of yogurt. It's a great nutrient boost.
Let me ask you this. Well, first, let's go to, and y'all, I have to put on my glasses because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So let's see. So Macretia, thank you for tuning in. Macretia said that African diets are high in flavor, in a high flavor profile in terms of spices. Let's see, she says that's how she eats. 70% plant and 1 cup portions, eats 6 times per day. Yeah, so definitely switching over to that plant-based model. It improves the entirety of your body and your health and your wellness.
It really does.
Stamina.
It is the recommended way to eat for breast cancer survivors, for people who have been through breast cancer. That is one of the big recommendations. Go plant-based forward, however you want to call it. Don't have to be 100% vegetarian or vegan unless you want to. But just load up on those plants. They really do make an impact.
And I'm glad you said that piece too, because I know whenever I am eating more or incorporating more fruits and vegetables in my diet, I feel tons better, more energy, more focus, more interest. It changes things for sure.
It's true, because also when you're increasing, like people ask me, should I put in or should I take out? When you start adding in plants, you're going to have less room for the other stuff that affects your mood and energy levels. So just start adding in. Don't worry about taking out at this point.
Yeah. One more question, and then I want to get to the wonderful, wonderful dressing that you are going to show us to help you eat more greens, more leafy greens. So cancer, in a sense, is an inflammatory type of situation. Of course, it's more than that, but there are some inflammatory elements.
Right.
For those of us who have other inflammatory type of challenges in the body, what types of foods would you suggest to help, decrease the inflammation?
So, it depends on the condition, but in terms of general inflammation, you're going to want to, first of all, I will say that pasta is not an inflammatory food. A lot of people, the first thing they cut out is pasta.
Really?
Yeah, so pasta a couple of times a week. It's even on the Mediterranean diet, and that's one of the healthiest ways to eat we have right now. So pasta is not your really an inflammatory food. What we find is more, again, too little plant foods, like people who are not eating enough plant foods. And then what we call ultra processed food. So, the only way I can describe it is let's say you have an orange, right off the tree, you got it at the farmer's market, wonderful food. And then you squeeze it and it becomes orange juice. So that's processed. That's still okay. Nothing wrong with a half cup a day. Right. But then you turn it into orange candy. So that's your ultra processed. That's your inflammatory food. That becomes that. And again, there's room for those foods. There's room for those fun foods. But most Americans, I will say, it's a shocking statistic, 80% of what they eat are these ultra processed foods.
Yeah, this is true.
So that's making up the bulk of your diet. That is going to cause an inflammatory condition in your body. So just start, moving along the spectrum back to kind of the orange.
Yeah. I said that was the last question, but I just thought about Thanksgiving. And we're going to be eating and enjoying at Thanksgiving. Help us with some mental mantras that we need to keep in mind as we're enjoying the holidays.
Right.
Whether, we're by ourselves or with the couple of people in our household.
Right. So that's a great thing that it's coming up now. And I would say go for a mental shift. So what happens comes Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holiday is, and we go into this Last Supper mentality. We're never going to have this food again. I got to have all of it. Right. And it's understandable. So I would, I tell my clients, have pumpkin pie for breakfast a few days before. And I know it sounds crazy, but when you get to that table, you'll be like, I'm good. Maybe I'll have a little apple pie just for a change, but I'm not going to overeat the pumpkin pie because I had it for breakfast and, it was pretty good, but I don't think I want it again. So allow yourself those foods once in a while and go with it, and just go in with the shift that I can have these foods anytime I want. It doesn't have to be Thanksgiving. Right? Because that's when we tend to overeat and what we call binge. And then it becomes a whole cycle. I don't feel good. I feel bad. Maybe I feel shameful, which there shouldn't be any shame in food ever. So go in with that attitude that I can have this anytime. If I want to have pumpkin pie for breakfast, I'm going to have pumpkin pie. And then it really becomes like a shift to, now I'm going to understand what feels good in my body. And then you go into the meal with a more peaceful attitude about the food.
Yeah. So it's that whole mindfulness, that whole being aware and conscious about how food feels to you, how you're processing that food.
Exactly. If you don't go in with this urgency, like I'm never going to have it again, or I love this food, I can never eat it. Yeah. If you leave that urgency aside, you're going to be paying more attention to how the food tastes, how it feels. You're going to be more choosy. You're going to say, I choose to have it, or I choose not to have it. It's not going to come out of this, feeling of powerlessness.
Right.
So get your power back. Have that pumpkin pie for breakfast.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing on that note, Tamar, if you choose to have it, you'll enjoy it more.
Exactly. You will.
You've made that choice.
Exactly. It's your choice. Exactly. That I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're choosing to have a wonderful salad, full of greens and onions and tomatoes and all of these wonderful fruit. Well, maybe fruit, but all of these wonderful vegetables. Let's talk about the dressing. Do we go out to the store and buy Thousand Island and I don't know.
I am a big fan of a good dressing because the dressing is everything. I mean, lettuce is fine, but it's lettuce. Yeah. So the dressing is everything. And once you have a good dressing and you make it yourself, and I'm going to show you, it's literally 5 minutes or less. Uh-huh. It lasts for 2 weeks in the fridge. It's filled with ingredients that exactly what you put in. A lot of the bought dressings, which we think are a time saver, are really not when you see how fast you can make one. But a lot of them have a lower quality food than we would normally have in our kitchens. Mm-hmm. So this way you control exactly. And the first thing I would say is get some mason jars. So these are really easy to find. You know, all the stores have them now. They're fun to have. They're glass, they're not plastic, and you know, they're recyclable. So the reason you would use a mason jar, first of all, it's portable. So if you make a dressing and you put some greens or roasted vegetables in there, now you're ready to go. If we're going back to the office, you can take this with you, or to a doctor's appointment. You know, really easy to transport. And also, oil and water doesn't mix. We know they don't want to live together. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, what turns them off to making their own dressing, they think they have to use a whisk or all kinds of fancy tools. If you put oil and water in here and you just shake it up, it's going to be great. It's like a whisk. So you're good to go. So that's my top tip. Yeah. I also suggest get the wide mouth, not the narrow ones. Mm-hmm. If you already have mason jars and they are narrow, then you can use a funnel. Okay. That makes life easier. And these cost like $1. So instead of buying all new mason jars. So to build your dressing, all dressings have a good mix of either sweet and tart and some, you know, herbs and spices. The mainstay of the dressing is going to be some kind of fat. So that could be olive oil. That could be avocado oil. That could be even a nut oil or a sesame oil, right? And then your second layer is some kind of acid. So that would be maybe a citrus like a lemon or a lime, or an apple cider vinegar or a balsamic vinegar. You could just play it up. And then you're going to add a little maple syrup. So that's your sweetener. So when you have that little sweetener balancing the acid, it makes for a really good, what we call mouthfeel. And then you can actually reduce the oil because you have that great flavor going. And I find a lot of people are afraid to put sugar in or maple syrup because they think it's too much sugar. You're putting in so little for this dressing that it wouldn't make a huge difference.
So it's all about balancing the flavors.
Yeah, exactly. And then you put in this one, I put in a little mustard. So the mustard not only adds a tangy flavor, it makes it cling to the vegetables better, to the lettuce or the vegetables. So that, again, is more tasty. So all I do is I'm going to build my dressing. I'm going to put in, here's a 1/4 cup of my olive oil. And then I have 2 tablespoons of balsamic red wine vinegar. Yeah, and I apologize because we were trying to work out the camera on the cutting board, but it didn't work.
Yeah, we had it all set up. She had it. Everything was perfect, but it just didn't work for us.
This is a teaspoon of maple syrup. So really very little. And then I'm going to put in, this is I use Dijon mustard. It has a bit of a nice flavor. I'm going to put that in. And then you like the garlic, so you can put in fresh garlic, really easy. Or you can use garlic powder too if you don't have fresh garlic. So it looks like this. It's not mixed. And then all you do is seal it really carefully. I put a towel around it just to make sure it doesn't spill. And then you're going to use your arm muscle.
Get a workout there.
All in one. And that's it. How long did that take?
Wonderful. And it's creamy. And I bet you when you take that lid off, just all those wonderful flavors.
And you can add your herbs and spices here. Literally, how long did that take me? Like less than a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could add more oil and you would have more dressing. So a really great way. You keep it in the fridge, like I said, 2 weeks. If you want to make this a little more Mediterranean, so actually I found these really cute little things of hummus.
Oh, yes.
Single serve. They're perfect for dressing. So you could put hummus in here as well. That makes it a little more Mediterranean. You could put, what else could you put?
if you like little pieces of things, that sounds terrible, but pieces of vegetables in your dressing, you could dice olives. You could
Oh,
literally
I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. And
olives.
then you could cut down on the olive oil for that. Yeah.
Mhm.
You could add oregano, cumin,
Yeah.
curry, depending on the dish. This really changes up the vegetables.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I find that people don't like vegetables a lot, like I said, because they're not, either the dressing is not what they really like or the texture. So that's a
Right.
way to play around.
Right.
You could also, so this is more of a maple mustard
Hmm.
dressing. You could,
Hmm.
as I said, make this a curry with tahini, which is a sesame paste. And then there's so many different ways to go.
And
Um,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but as you're building this dressing, for those who are weaning themselves off of meats, this would be a great marinade for your chicken breast
This
or
is yeah, this is fantastic. You could use this in so many ways. Exactly right.
yeah, yeah.
I especially like it on roasted vegetables. Like you
Oh
take
God.
a pan, you put whatever vegetable you want, and then you
Mhm.
have the dressing ready to go in
Mhm.
the fridge. And then I find that you can also fill this mason jar, by the way, if you make less dressing or pour out some of it, fill it with your lettuce and your whole grains or whatever, and that's your lunch.
Yeah.
Um, or roasted vegetables and portable lunch ready to go. I find that this isn't enough in terms of your 2 cups of leafy vegetables, which you need.
Mhm.
So you can buy like a regular salad, keep the plastic dish, take it with you, and you have your dressing and a
Wow.
big salad. I added, and this is hard to see, but I added roasted chickpeas. So that's your plant protein, and it adds that crunch instead of a crouton. Really nice way to go. So experiment, enjoy it.
Oh my gosh, you're just getting me so excited when you said the roasted chickpea. So the croutons have that herbaceous type of flavor.
Right.
You could roast the chickpea and put those same types of flavors on top.
That's exactly right. Or
Oh my
I'm a big fan of seeds also
gosh.
for breast health. So these are pumpkin seeds, pepitas. These go great on a salad also instead of croutons. I mean, or with croutons, but this adds the crunch that you like.
Yeah.
And these are filled with magnesium and zinc and so much good stuff. So in terms of pumping up the nutrition in a dish, you add some seeds. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it could be pumpkin, it could be hemp seeds. Try new stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Just build it up. Build it up.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
whatever suits your palate, that's what you stick with. And then, add layer some other things on just to switch it up so you don't get bored.
Right, exactly. It's really important that it's sustainable for you.
Exactly, exactly. Tamar, this has been phenomenal. I'm just so grateful. I say a lot of times, I definitely want the viewer to be inspired and empowered, but I walk away so inspired and
Oh,
empowered.
I'm so glad. Well, that's what I want to impart. Just
Yes, ma'am.
take those small steps. You can do it.
That's right.
You can improve your health on very small steps with a huge impact each step has.
Exactly, exactly. And so on that note, we're going to say goodnight. But first, remember, and Tamar told us at the onset, get those mammograms, ladies and men, super important. And if you're concerned about COVID protocols, as I shared when I got mine, I was well taken care of. So that should be the least of your concern. I want to thank you again for watching tonight. Thank you for watching as you've done so faithfully over the last few months. As I shared at the beginning, this is the last episode of the season. I'm sad, but I'm excited at the same time because I'll have some time to refresh ideas and bring you some more amazing guests in 2021. Haven't determined a launch date for season 2, but when I do, you'll hear it here first, and then I'm on Instagram. So make sure you're following Profiles on Instagram. Keep it locked here on Facebook, and I can't wait to bring you season 2 of Profiles. Until then, please have a very safe holiday. We understand the season that we are in terms of the pandemic, so please make sure you're keeping safe and keeping your loved ones safe. Enjoy a good meal. enjoy conversation with family and friends. Stay safe, and we'll see you in 2021. Thank you, Tamar. I appreciate your
With the vaccine.
time. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Paulette. It was such a treat. Thank you so much.
So much. My pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.